President Trump of the United States has made no secret of his desire to purchase Bitcoin in order to settle the national debt. Donald Trump has officially stated that maybe we might pay off our $35 trillion debt by giving them some Bitcoin. The whole cryptocurrency market was rattled by that single statement. This is where things start to get crazy, though, because Trump's claims, when put into mathematical context, not only show how implausible that strategy is in relation to Bitcoin, but they also inadvertently point directly to XRP. Join me as we dissect this, since these figures will reveal why XRP has the potential to stealthily become the foundation of the next international monetary system. Before we get into the data, I want you to pay close attention. In the XRP Millionaire Blueprint, I lay out all you need to know to see how the top 1% are preparing for the next crypto revolution. The package contains the entire text, an organized infographic, and a private video analysis that reveals how the wealthy are getting ready for the future. See the pinned comment down below the video for the link. Subscribing and like is also greatly appreciated. Okay, then I guess we should begin with Trump's statement. In his estimation, the United States might use Bitcoin to settle its $35 trillion national debt. It is daring of you, but I'll show you the numbers nonetheless. Imagine for a second that the United States government decided to purchase 1 million Bitcoin. Out of a total of 21 million coins, that amounts to 1 million. That transaction would cost approximately $103 billion at the current Bitcoin price of around $103,000. Let me tell you about the issue. Those Bitcoins would have to be worth $35,000 each if they intended to use them to settle the entire $35 trillion debt. Yes, you read that correctly, $35,000 for one Bitcoin. The overall market cap of Bitcoin would then surpass $735 trillion. To give you an idea of scale, the total amount of fiat cash in circulation today is just around $50 trillion. The figures don't add up until the money supply is suddenly increased by a factor of 15. We would still be a long way off from that valuation, even if every nation, corporation, and individual on the planet transferred their wealth into Bitcoin. While the concept of using Bitcoin to pay off debt is appealing, the current global system makes it nearly impossible from a mathematical standpoint. However, that is precisely the point at which XRP becomes relevant. Because unlike Bitcoin, XRP isn't meant to be a medium of exchange, but rather a medium of storage for value. Tokenization, quick settlement, and the globalization of digital assets are all features that will be integral to its design in the future of banking. Central banks throughout the globe are putting digital currencies to the test, and an increasing number of these tests are taking place on the XRP ledger. No, that is not conjecture. That is a fact that has been proven. Let's give this some clear consideration. A staggering $36 trillion and rising in the United States debt. With an asset price of $35 million per coin, it's not feasible to pay it off. And yet, imagine if the United States or any nation could make use of a digital asset designed specifically for settlement, liquidity, and tokenization. That is the sole function of XRP. Within 2 seconds, and for less than 30 cents, the XRP ledger may transfer $50 million. The early backers of Ripple have shown it in public. Consider the same level of efficiency implemented on a national scale, but this time for all international banking, all transactions involving central banks, and all institutional liquidity, rather than just one transfer. Just thinking about the money saved is mind-blowing. Depending on the number of intermediaries and networks involved, traditional systems such as SWIFT can settle transactions anywhere from 1 to 5 days at a cost of $20 to thousands of dollars per transfer. XRP eliminates that issue immediately. Therefore, let's jump into some logical mathematics. There are 100 billion XRP tokens in circulation. Approximately 37 billion are currently held in escrow by Ripple, meaning they will be released at a later date. Private wallets, such as the ones you and I use, own the remaining cryptocurrencies, while exchanges hold about 20 billion. This means that only a tiny fraction, perhaps about 10%, is actually liquid and tradable at any one time. Consider the following hypothetical situation. The XRP ledger experiences a massive influx of demand due to the worldwide tokenization of value, which includes CBDCs, stablecoins, and digital assets. Assume that out of the hundreds of trillions of dollars in the world's markets, only $50 trillion is tokenized and transferred across the XRP ledger. Each XRP might be worth roughly $8,800 if only 10% of the supply is currently in circulation. Theoretically, that is an attainable number since tokenized value doesn't necessitate the replacement of money. It just improves the efficiency of existing systems by bridging them. Let that sink in. There would be enough XRP in circulation to manage $50 trillion in global settlement value at a price of $8,800 per unit. That's not completely out of the question. Tokenizing bonds, equities, real estate, and commodities is already an ongoing project at financial institutions. Not many ledgers can manage that amount of data at the enterprise level, but XRP is one of them. Take a quick look at Trump's proposal again. It could look like this if the U.S. government decided to use XRP instead of Bitcoin. They would only require 5 billion XRP, each worth $8,800, to settle the $45 trillion in predicted future debt. The worth of that is approximately $44 trillion. Think about it. If you needed 1 million Bitcoin, each one would cost you $35 million. It's completely different. It gets much stranger from here. At the current price of approximately $3 per coin, purchasing 5 billion XRP would only cost around $15 billion. That's a fraction of what it would take to purchase 1 million Bitcoins at the current market price. What exactly does this imply? So, Bitcoin isn't the best option if Trump or any big government wants to use crypto to shore up their finances. This is XRP. A market valuation of $700 trillion won't be necessary for XRP to have practical value. Now all it needs is adoption. In fact, that has been Ripple's long-term goal. Now, global financial institutions, payment companies, and central banks are all part of Ripple's relationships. Organizations associated with the UK Bank, Singapore's Monetary Authority, Bhutan's central bank, and others have previously collaborated with them. The technique is currently undergoing testing in actual settings. It is thus not only feasible, but probable that XRP will play a significant role in global liquidity and settlement. The process has begun. Moreover, the majority of individuals fail to notice this. Without actually being the CBDC, XRP can nevertheless lay the groundwork for digital currencies issued by central banks. The XRP ledger is designed to be fast and has built-in liquidity, so a country can use it to issue its own digital currency. So what happened? Worldwide payments that are both quick and easy, with fast settlement and huge system-wide savings. Now picture that on a larger scale. Just like they maintain core equities like Apple or Google stock in their long-term portfolios, large financial institutions are beginning to use XRP for internal liquidity. Rarely does XRP that has been placed in their reserve ever make its way back onto the market. That decreases the amount in circulation, which increases the value of scarcity. Once large funds lock in their positions, the same mechanism causes huge equities to surge. In this way, events around XRP are developing behind the scenes. In the background, XRP is always making connections whenever tokenization, fast settlement, or CBDC compatibility make news. We already have the infrastructure in place. There has been a delay in the public's acknowledgement. Without realizing it, Trump is subtly hinting at something far larger when he discusses paying off debt using Bitcoin. That a global economy built on digital assets is about to take shape. Institutions and governments are beginning to realize that value may be transferred more quickly at a lower cost and with greater transparency than in the past. At the very heart of this change is XRP. Now let's shift gears and discuss the XRP wealthy list. It is absolutely captivating. As of right now, the total supply of XRP coins is little over 100 billion. Also, 1 XRP is equivalent to 100 billionth of a percent of the total network value. Though it may not seem like much, that small fraction might signify a stake in the world's future financial infrastructure if XRP ends up being the universal currency connecting all economies. Let that sink in. You might own a piece of the financial system of the future for just a few dollars. Things start to heat up now. About 37 billion coins are still held in escrow by Ripple, the firm behind XRP. Ripple has the option to sell or relock these tokens, and their issuance is staggered monthly. That mechanism maintains ecological stability and stops the market from becoming overwhelmed. Additionally, there are exchanges that hold approximately 20 billion XRP, which means that there are still locations where users can buy or sell it, accounting for nearly 20% of the entire quantity. Everything else, it's in the possession of believers who have held on for the long haul. When you combine average people like us with major individuals in the system who know what's now, you get a very impressive picture. The amount of XRP that the public may access is decreasing. There is a finite amount of XRP in circulation, and that number might decrease even more rapidly if additional financial institutions and central banks start using it for settlement, liquidity, and payments. This is analogous to the practice of large investment firms like BlackRock or Fidelity purchasing and holding on to stocks for the long run. Those shares are taken out of circulation, which means there is less supply and more demand for the remaining ones. This case follows the same reasoning. That's why the XRP price potential estimates you hear from experts aren't just guesses. Real liquidity math is the basis of it. In order for the XRP ledger to efficiently process additional value flowing across it, the price of each XRP must grow. With just 10% of the total quantity in circulation, the math quickly drives values into the thousands per coin if $50 trillion worth of tokenized assets end up utilizing XRP for settlement. We must examine the ways in which tokenization will expedite this before proceeding. Financial behemoths such as JP Chase, BlackRock, and Goldman Sachs are currently testing the waters with tokenizing physical assets. This means that assets such as equities, bonds, real estate, and debt instruments are being digitally represented on blockchain networks. Every asset in the world may be made more liquid, traceable, and transferable using this method. As an example, let's pick a basic one. Pretend for a second that a multinational corporation owns properties valued at $1 billion spread out over an assortment of nations. Such assets have typically been kept under wraps. You can't just pick them up, sell them, or use them. However, digital units representing ownership can be created by tokenizing those assets. Plus, governments, investors, and institutions can all transact with those tokens in an instant. Multiply that by the whole market size on a worldwide scale. Here is where XRP's architecture really comes into its own. The XRP ledger was specifically designed to settle and transfer those tokens in a matter of seconds. Most individuals also fail to notice this important point. And XRP isn't simply quick. The system is both efficient and scalable. The proof-of-work mining process that underpins Bitcoin is energy intensive, but XRP transactions do not. Because of this, central banks are happy to try it out. Efficiency and sustainability are what they require, not yet another system that puts a burden on the world's resources. In order to ensure that their network can manage institutional-grade settlement, Ripple has spent years perfecting it. For this reason, RippleNet is establishing connections with large institutions and payment corridors all around the world. How do banks stand to gain from this transformation? Let's examine that question now. Worldwide financial institutions transfer trillions of dollars annually with the help of several middlemen who collect astronomical fees. The existing system, which is controlled by networks such as SWIFT, is dependable but severely out of date. There are a lot of moving parts in the 3 to 5 business days it takes for a transaction to clear, including fluctuating exchange rates, a buildup of compliance checks, and an increase in operational costs. It's an inefficient procedure outside of the international monetary system. That is precisely the function of XRP. With the use of Ripple's technology, financial institutions may conduct real-time cross-border money transfers with settlement times of only 3 to 5 seconds. How much? Small amounts of money, fractions of a cent at times. By acting as the universal liquidity layer, XRP eliminates the need for numerous intermediaries to bridge currencies and instantaneously converts one asset into another. Time isn't the only thing this helps save. It also improves cash flow management, unlocks huge savings, and frees up capital for banks that would otherwise be sitting in nostro accounts. All things considered, XRP brings conventional banking into the digital era by doing away with the friction that has hampered international transfers for decades. In the past, TechCrunch founder Michael Arrington provided a compelling real-world scenario that demonstrated XRP's efficiency. He sent $50 million using XRP, and the whole deal settled in 2 seconds for 30 cents. You can't call that a test run or a hypothetical use case. That's real-time, high-value money flowing across borders. Think about how much better things would be if the biggest banks in the world were that efficient. There will be an exponential increase in the demand for XRP as more and more financial institutions begin to transfer hundreds of billions of dollars every day using this very network. Constant utility-driven demand is created since every single transfer uses a tiny amount of XRP as a bridge asset and a transaction fee. To become an integral part of global liquidity and efficient cross-border banking, XRP is becoming more valuable by its usage rather than speculation, which is driving up transaction volume. For this reason, XRP has the support of many in the financial sector who see it as the best option for widespread use. It's connecting currencies, not seeking to replace them. The majority of individuals fail to notice that. The US dollar, the euro, and the Japanese yen are not competitors of XRP. You can send money from one country to another in a matter of seconds rather than days because it links all of them together. The interest from central banks stems from this reason. For that reason, Ripple's technology has been stealthily implemented in test projects all across the globe. Take a step back for a second and consider the big picture. Governments worldwide are getting ready for the next financial phase, which will be characterized by CBDCs, or digital currencies issued and managed by central banks. Using blockchain technology, they are digital representations of national currencies. However, the real issue is which network will link these various digital currencies. Simply put, if each nation constructs its own digital system, there will be no way for them to communicate with one another. What XRP was originally intended to be is that bridge. Private blockchains such as XRP and XLM could facilitate cross-border central bank digital currencies, according to research published by the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, which governs numerous national central banks across the globe. Ripple has been in continuous talks with several central banks regarding pilot programs and has worked directly with the banks of Bhutan and Palau. The groundwork has been laid. Envision a future where the digital currencies of all nations can utilize the XRP ledger for instantaneous commerce, settlement, or value transfer. A new, transparent, and borderless kind of global liquidity would be at your fingertips. Decentralized, trustless, and real-time verifiable, this new network would be a vast improvement over the present system, which is dependent on antiquated settlement layers. Now consider the impact on XRP demand that this has. Liquidity for transactions will be provided by XRP as the network attracts additional users from central banks, institutions, and companies. There is a finite amount of XRP, though. The supply is limited. There will be less XRP available for circulation if every large player purchases and hoards XRP for settlement. Furthermore, fundamental economics kick in when worldwide adoption increases and supply tightens. To maintain a steady supply and demand, prices must rise. The liquidity of XRP might determine the value of trillions of dollars. It's just supply and demand magnified on a worldwide scale. Come on, let's make this even easier. As of right now, $170 billion would be flowing into XRP from a worldwide fund like Fidelity, which controls around $17 trillion in assets. Even a small allocation of 1% would make a significant impact. Just that might cause a major change in the market. Picture this now. A number of countries, banks, and funds all doing this. A direct representation of the amount of global value flowing through it is the once impossible possibility of XRP reaching thousands per coin. Plus, the time is perfect. Finally, the SEC's regulatory pressure on Ripple is reducing, which means that institutional adoption can now proceed. Major financial institutions were holding off on making a bold move until they had such clarity. Financial institutions can invest billions of dollars into XRP for settlement and liquidity management if they have faith in the regulatory framework. Keep in mind the Trump footage from before. To settle our debt, we will give them some Bitcoin. The notion may have begun as a headline, but it is already igniting genuine conversations about digital assets in the realms of government and finance, almost poetic. And the more the frequency of such conversations, the greater the global effort to find practical answers. Technologies that are quick, extensible, and linked worldwide. Although Bitcoin gets all the attention, XRP is designed to be the frontrunner in the utility phase. A digital gold token differs from a digital liquidity token in that respect. Being able to hold on to Bitcoin for the long haul is incredible. However, XRP is the currency that enables the transfer of funds. In order to settle transactions, pay off debts, and link entire economies. And the world is certainly moving in that direction. Looking at the big picture makes it crystal evident why the world's most powerful financial institutions, banks, and individuals are discreetly preparing. We are nearly finished with the infrastructure. Work has begun on the tracks. Opening up are the liquidity corridors. The figures we're discussing will become clear after the switch is turned on, and XRP starts managing a small portion of the world's tokenized value. Your money is not being advised by this. Winners in court disputes, new licenses, and expanded alliances in places including Asia, Europe, and the Middle East are just a few of Ripple's accomplishments during the past year. These actions are deliberate. These locations are strategically placed in regions that are already embracing digital currency. One example is the UAE's experimentation with blockchain-based interbank payments. Digital asset settlement is now available under Project Guardian, which is being rolled out by Singapore's MAS. The digital euro framework has also started to be formalized by the European Central Bank. There in the center of it all is Ripple. Allow me to explain, why hasn't the price of XRP burst yet if it's so revolutionary? That is the question that keeps coming up. You have my straightforward answer. Gradual acceptance is required. What Ripple is creating alters the whole nature of monetary transactions. In addition, necessary infrastructure, rules, and collaborations are required for this. When those things are in place, though, progress is usually lightning fast. An easy analogy will do. Consider the dawn of the internet. It seemed like absolutely nothing was happening for a long time. Uncertainty, sluggish websites, and a lack of obvious applications. Then, out of nowhere, it all made sense. The advent of smartphones and widespread availability of broadband caused an instantaneous boom in the digital economy. Here, too, the same pattern is unfolding. For a long time, Ripple has been covertly preparing the way. Plus, that base is nearly ready to hit the mainstream market. Tokenizing assets by banks, digital currencies by governments, and blockchain-based payment explorations by firms are all part of the build-up to XRP's big moment. Since there needs to be a way to link all of those systems for them to function optimally, that part is called liquidity. And that is precisely what XRP offers. One last time, let's discuss worth. Why? Because this is where the price that potential customers constantly bringing up becomes the central theme. A tiny amount of XRP is utilized by the system to execute each and every transaction involving XRP. On-demand liquidity is what you're describing. The more value changes hands, the more XRP is used, and demand for it increases organically. To meet the need for liquidity, the price of XRP will need to climb if the system begins processing trillions of transactions per day. Simple mathematics. This is the reason why some of the world's most astute investors are discreetly building up their holdings. Fast turns aren't what they're after. They're getting ready for the future of the financial system, which will involve moving to digital rails. A modest commitment has the potential to grow into a substantial holding if XRP serves as the medium of exchange for international payments. Let me tell you about the most thrilling part. This change won't take decades. In certain parts of the world, it has already begun. The SBI Group of Japan and payment corridors in Latin America are among the many places where XRP is already settling actual transactions. With each live corridor, new collaboration, and successful test, the network gets closer to its scaling goal. The market's opinion will change dramatically the moment large-scale settlements involving XRP are made public by banks. Prices begin to reflect the value they provide. When retail catches up, the media becomes involved, and the tide turns. Everything is falling into place. We are almost there with the infrastructure. And as anyone who has been keeping tabs can tell you, this change isn't even close to happening. It has begun moving forward. Simultaneously with the internet's subtle but profound impact on communication, XRP is presently altering the landscape of global finance. Our current systems are antiquated, costly, and sluggish compared to the digital, borderless networks that will soon replace them. The money system is evolving, and XRP is a unique asset that can manage this type of international flow. Therefore, XRP is prepared to be used for debt repayment, cross-border liquidity transfers, or connecting digital currencies issued by central banks. When the complete system goes online, those who grasp that early on and can see the forest for the trees will have the upper hand. If you're interested in learning how the top 1% are preparing for the next big financial transition, the XRP Millionaire Blueprint includes all the information you need. Click on the link in the remark that has been pinned to the bottom of this page.